everybody. Hello and welcome, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, to this week's episode of Let's Pick This Up Next Week with me, Dee, and our lovely, handsome co-host, DJ. How's it going, DJ?
It's going all right. It's a lot of stuff going on. Things are pretty exciting in the world.
For sure. Are we talking about the fact that I'm finally in my rearranged and redecorated room? Because that's what's new and exciting in my world.
Look at that.
You just asked while we're sitting here if this is real. And for those who are watching on YouTube or Spotify, this is real. This is really the background in my my office. So anywho, so finally I should be in this physical location when we record, in theory, and not bouncing around my house. So.
Yeah, nice.
But what did you mean as new and exciting in the world?
We were talking about politics and how this might impact some of our clients, but also how we balance the way that it impacts us and not assuming how it impacts our clients who I think a lot of times, like especially when we work with people who are from marginalized backgrounds, we might assume that that there's certain hot topics for them or there are things that they're excited about, and maybe they're not as excited. But a lot of stuff going on in politics. Joe Biden, our current president, has decided to not run again, and now we have some renewed hope, I think, and for people who are Democrats, and so that's big stories. The debates coming up. It's an election year. And the Olympics are starting today as opening ceremonies. And you and I were talking about how Simone Biles is, now an advocate for mental health and mental health therapy. So just big things that's going on.
So much in the world. Well, let's start with politics, because we've talked about it on the podcast a little bit before, but it's always interesting to me how sometimes things do shake up our therapeutic work and sometimes things don't. I tend to work with people who are not really interested in politics, but in my mind, I'm like, this impacts you so much. Please just pay attention. This is important. These things, they have effects on your life. I'm a very political person. I distinctly remember the 2000 election, because that's really when I started to get into politics and to be interested and learn a lot. So I'm just really passionate about it. And so it frustrates me when I'm I want to shake people and be like, I know you don't think your vote matters, which with the Electoral College, it kind of doesn't, but that's a whole thing.
Well, if nobody voted, the Electoral College wouldn't work either.
Okay, but the popular vote exists, right?
Yes.
I live in Ohio. My vote doesn't really count anymore, because, the state tends to always go one way. Now we're no longer a purple state in Ohio.
That's such a interesting concept right there too. I'm from Ohio, and now I live in Oregon, where I feel I'll go vote, but it doesn't. I pretty much know how it's gonna go too. But Ohio, I used to feel let me go take my vote to Ohio because I feel like it'll make more of a difference there. Because Ohio was always a swing state. But now Ohio is not a swing state, and they don't think it's going to be again. All of the political experts think that it won't swing back, that it'll always be more of a Republican state now.
So I think, and the stuff that's happening only drives that point further. So did you hear about, I can't remember the word, but we just had a bunch of voters, their registration expired for voting. I don't think that's the right word, but essentially many people who were considered to be inactive voters. And in my mind, it's how do you describe something as inactive when many people only vote every 4 years? And if you miss one, now it's 8 years. Right. So I don't remember exactly how they defined an inactive voter, but part of it was if you were still wanting to be an active voter, you had to get something in the mail that told you that your voting status, could go away. Basically, you'd have to reapply to be an eligible voter, and it would be mailed to them. And I think about, you mentioned like marginalized communities, and not even just necessarily marginalized, but people who like move.
Mhm.
I'm ridiculous. I'm also that person who, like, when I leave on vacation, I put in like a temporary mail stop so the mail person doesn't load up my mailbox while I'm gone.
All right.
I'm
Yeah.
very organized with that stuff.
Yes.
But like a lot of people don't realize, like, I mean, they might realize that like their voter registration is tied to their address because that's where they go to vote. But when
Hmm.
you move, you don't always think about that. And then if you
Right.
haven't been passionate about the last election,
Right.
I mean, we're talking thousands, tens of thousands of people lost their voter registration status. And the people who that impacts have historically voted Democrat.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when these types of things are happening, and I'm sure they're happening elsewhere, I'm just more tuned into what's happening in Ohio, the impact of that is huge, and it will have those longstanding impacts because there are disenfranchised voters who are going to
Mhm.
maybe go to try to vote, learn that they're not an eligible voter because they've, been deactivated. I'm going to look up this word. It's going to bug me if I don't think about it. And then just be like, well, then F it. Then my vote clearly
Right.
doesn't count. I'm not voting, and it's not worth it.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
these things are happening all the time.
Right. And does Ohio do mail-in voting? Because I know that's a big, hot topic as well.
Yes.
I know Oregon, like I normally go like the last election I went and like waited to the last minute because that's what I always do. And so I couldn't mail mine in, but I found a drop box so I could take my
Mm,
ballot, filled it out. But there was a drop box right outside of, I could have went in because the election,
hmm
the polls were open later than I thought. But there's a lot of debate about the legitimacy and accuracy and legality of mail-in votes.
Which I do find really interesting, and not necessarily to take a political stance, but to talk historically about, statistically, it was more Republican and right wing leaning folks who did do more mail in voting
Mhm.
before. And now that's had this huge switch and shift, and it's just really interesting. But yeah, in Ohio, we still have, you can request an absentee ballot and they send it to you, and then you can fill it out, mail it back, or drop it off. I do early in-person voting usually because like we do a big thing, me and one of my friends, and we take the kiddos so they learn about voting, and they help get the little stickers of future Ohio voter, and
Nice.
yeah, so we go in person, but it's early. It's like, but even then they've limited that in the last couple of years. I used to be able to vote early. They'd have a couple Saturdays for a couple weeks
Mhm.
and really made it accessible as somebody who works
Right.
13-hour days pretty regularly. I don't always have time to make it to the polls.
Right.
But now they limited it. You can literally only vote very limited hours throughout the week. There can only be open, I think, one Saturday. Like, it's very limited the times that you can go vote in person at your board of elections. And then obviously on election day, you have your voter polls are open there in your
You have to
locations.
request an absentee ballot because here, like, you just automatically get sent. A big. I don't know. I don't want to say it's a book of like uh the issues that are up for election, all the candidates, and like a
Really?
lot of information, and the ballot too. Yeah.
Hold up.
Mhm.
What's in this book?
It's like every issue, so it has all the
Okay.
information about what the issue is. I have like both sides of like the political, like maybe what do Republicans say and what would Democrats say, and like why should you support this, and
What?
hmm and all of the candidates and their backgrounds and just so much information. I mean, it's thick. It's pretty thick. It's paper. I don't, just a paper book. I don't know, but it's a
I
book.
feel like if you scanned a QR code, that would be great instead of sending a book. But I'm like, how amazing would that be? The only time, if you're not, you have to try and become engaged with like the code language, because a lot of things will be like hidden in
Hmm.
different things that we vote on. And so unless you're reading the whole thing and able to conceptualize and to look at things like I spend a lot of time looking at laws and rules and things like that.
Mhm.
And unless you're well versed in a lot of these things, they don't make sense. And
Right.
when you go to the Board of Elections, there's a giant poster that is probably, I don't know, 3 feet by 4 feet that have all of the issues printed in very fine print. You can see
Mhm.
all of the language. That's it. That's all you get,
Yeah.
which is wild.
Yeah. No, it's great to have that because you can literally go through your ballot and look at this book at the same time and kind of like really, read about it, think
Wow.
about it.
I have to
That's
go
pretty
and
great.
seek out my ballot. Like, I don't know if there's
Mhm.
an easier way, but like I log on to my little voter registration log on thing. I pull up a copy of what my district thing is, because like I could live 4 neighborhoods over and have a completely different ballot. And I go through, read about the issues. I either reach out to the politicians or I happen to know them if they're local. And then I like highlight who I'm voting for or what issues I'm voting for. And then usually a couple of my friends are just like, can you just send me a copy of your ballot?
Right, right,
So
right.
they
I
know
have a
what's
friend
up.
who,
And
yeah, I have a
yeah,
friend who
so
does it
my vote counts like 3 times because I have a
too.
couple people who are like, yeah, just like you did the homework.
Right, right. Yeah. When they know you have similar political beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually did look up this article it's from the Ohio Capitol Journal, and it was just published on July 25th. It was the voter purge. There was 158,857 inactive voters
Wow.
um, who are likely being purged from the Ohio voter rolls, and the majority are registered in populations or in counties where the population is a majority people of color.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what we're talking about, like, marginalized, the marginalized clients that we work with. I wonder, Dee, I work for a corporation and for people who have private insurance. So, caseloads are my caseloads are different than when I worked in treatment and like the
mhm.
populations that you're working with. If it is something that a lot of I think that because of all of my clients know that I'm transgender, so most of the people that I work with have similar political beliefs. um
Mhm.
but it doesn't come up a lot because I think that the impact is different on the population that I work with, who maybe have a little more privilege than maybe some of the people that you work with.
Yeah, I work predominantly, I mean, community mental health.
Mhm.
99% of our client populations, if they do have insurance, are on Medicaid. So they're really greatly impacted by a lot of things um, in the political climate. I mean, we had good, bad, or indifferent during the pandemic. They put a pause on disenrolling people from Medicaid. I think partially because the workforce wasn't there to like do revalidation, but also is that people needed health insurance, right? Like we shouldn't be booting people
Mhm.
off health insurance when we have a pandemic. But it started in 2023, I believe. They started to look back and to require revalidation and removed a lot of people from public benefits because of it, because for one reason or other, either they were no longer eligible or they didn't get their paperwork that told them it was their turn, because there was no list of like, you could go on and check your status and see, oh, I have to revalidate in July. Because we have a department of people who that's their job, is to help people have insurance coverage. And if we would have had access to it to say, here's all of our clients, they're going to be, up for revalidation in July. Let's start reaching out to them early and help them understand, how do you revalidate? Let's help field that for them, because it's difficult. It's a challenging, uh, environment to navigate. But there was no such thing. People would be sent a letter to their last known address. So we spent a lot of time educating people of like, here's how you go and update your address with,
Okay.
JFS, who will be the people sending you these letters, so that hopefully you don't fall off and be uninsured. And then I spend a lot of time writing grants so that people who aren't insured can still access treatment, because I find it absolutely appalling that our ability to access healthcare and wellness comes along with either filling out paperwork because you are eligible for a program like Medicaid or Medicare, or tied to your employment. That's so silly to me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is definitely hard in our country to like be able to access all the services. Um, you know.
Even Olympians struggle with this stuff. Like you mentioned,
Right.
the Olympics is starting. Did I hear, by the way, that Snoop Dogg is a torchbearer for us? Or was that like a fever dream that I had?
Snoop Dogg is involved somehow. I'm not sure if he's a torchbearer, but I mean, I keep seeing him in pictures with Olympians. I'm not quite sure. The opening
I'm
ceremonies are
obsessed.
tonight. I'm super excited. I was just in Paris. The opening ceremonies are on the Seine River, and I was just there on a
That's
cruise.
just petty.
So I'm pretty excited to see. But I did hear that Paris has less tourists than the least amount of tourists they've had since COVID, which
Hmm.
is like just unbelievable. But I know they weren't. The city itself was not very excited about having the Olympics there. Not the people who live there, but we were talking about Simone Biles, and I want to like step back a little bit to politics because I think we're also thinking about like I know I was very very excited to see like Kamala Harris being a candidate, and I think it really has put some more excitement in people who lean left. But I think yeah, it came up with my one of my therapists who were like, how can I support? I work with a lot of marginalized. She's like a lot of my caseload is queer. A lot of my caseload, are people of color, and how am I going to support them through this? And I said, number one,
Mm.
we can't assume that they're going to have the same beliefs that you have, or that they're as excited, or that they're. I think this was before Kamala was announced as the presumptive candidate, when people were like, oh, like it's sort of looking kind of bleak and stuff for our party. But I think that remembering that that our people don't, just because like we're saying, like everyone's not excited about politics as we are, and we can't assume also that they're struggling the same thing as we might when things look like they could be go a certain way for our country.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think too of just like the impact of having a different candidate. So I know polls were showing that people who tend to vote Democratic were not debating who to vote for. They were debating, do I even go to the polls or
Yeah.
vote for Joe Biden? Because it was just
Mm-hmm.
like a complete disinterest of that, of
Mm-hmm.
just like,
Right.
eh. So I think like it says a lot that in the first 24 hours after announcing that she'd be the presumptive Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris generated over $100 million
I
of
know.
um, of donations to her campaign, which I just thought was fantastic. And I hope that the I don't know, divisiveness of our politics don't become derogatory. Unfortunately, we've kind of already seen that. I just don't understand why there's always a focus on, because when we talk about like people's mental health and we talk about the impact of racism and microaggressions, and when we're
Mhm.
talking about things and mocking someone's laughter over
Right. Yeah.
a political career, it's
Hmm.
wild to me. Absolutely
It
wild
is
to me.
wild. It's wild, but it's also interesting to me. Is like that's they have to be like they have to pick out something, and what is the thing that they're going to pick out? It kind of shows that
I
like
wish the worst thing about me was
there's
my laugh.
right, and I think I wonder if she's kind of feeling the same way. Like, I mean, that's really like low and ridiculous, but like, I mean, also it's ridiculous. So,
Hmm.
but I think, yeah, it would be so great if our first female president is a black woman. Like,
Hmm.
that's just like really, really amazing. And, fingers crossed that, the excitement, continues. I think that like as a Democrat, like it's been clear, we definitely have bias. I think there was no excitement. Like you were saying, like people
Mm-hmm.
were, feeling hopeless. So I think if we were supporting clients who were like, I don't know what to do. Like it looks bleak. I don't know what to do with another we have a 4 years of Trump again. Like I just don't know, what to do. And so I think that now at least there's some more hope that, at least there's more of a chance because it wasn't looking that way. But it is pretty great to see people more unified when there's like that. It was hard to see everyone unified against one other person, like Trump, and seeing that like there wasn't the same unification.
Mm-hmm.
So at least like I think is bringing people together.
I do find it, oh my gosh, I could say so much about politics. I could make this whole podcast like therapy and politics, and just those are the two things we talk about
Right.
the whole time. Because I find it interesting how rapid beliefs have changed, I suppose, because usually in politics it's pretty incremental. And I think
Mhm.
progress is still incremental because progress is both uh, given and taken away in a lot of different
Mhm.
ways. And I know you and I just spoke a couple weeks ago at Addiction Studies Institute, which is a national conference for people who work in or around the addiction field, counselors, lawyers, social workers, doctors, psychiatrists. And I spoke a little bit about different uh, bills and things like that going through and how it does impact our folks. Um, I mean, and us, and us.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I have a hard time. I definitely wouldn't describe myself using any certain party term. Um, Although I know what direction I lean. All
It
right, we got
does.
an echo over there now. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
My,
hold on.
my
So the first time you had technical difficulties, not me, and I'm happy about that. But
completely lost my earbuds, so just out here with my computer mic and my computer speaker, and we'll see how it goes. My girlfriend watches and listens to the podcast, and she was like, "Dee always sounds so crisp and clear, and you do not. You need to get a mic," which I haven't gotten yet, but maybe I'll do that.
I will send you the links to my whole setup. I finally
Yeah,
got my camera to work. Uh, and so crisp and beautiful image over
mhm.
here.
Yeah.
Um,
I need a crisp and beautiful image so I can show my braces.
oh heck yeah. Um, my favorite was learning you don't listen to our own podcast.
I've, I listened to our episode about autism. I think that's the one most people listen to.
My God.
Yeah. My
And
girlfriend
meanwhile,
listens, so I ask her how'd you
oh my
like it?
God.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, I'm
Mhm.
like, I listen to episodes at least 4 or 5 times because I have to listen to produce and edit it, and then I watch it
Mhm.
on each of the on
Do you?
Spotify on app. Well, I need to know how the sound comes across
Oh,
and what to
right,
do to,
right,
yeah,
right.
like
Yeah.
because it still has to go through a processing when it goes from
Uh-huh.
the studio format, the software that we use, to these different sites. So,
Yeah.
DJ, you
And
can at least listen once.
too. So you mentioned the conference that we just presented at, and it's
Hmm.
the second year that we've presented for that conference. It's pretty great. But we also promoted our podcast there, so I wonder if we'll get some new listeners because we had a pretty good turnout for our presentation. So
We
maybe
did. That
we'll.
was legit.
We have a TikTok now. So you sent a clip
That's right.
last time to Tiffany, who put it on TikTok, and that clip was pretty great. So we're getting the word out more and more, and so hopefully
I
we'll get
forgot.
some more listeners. Mhm.
I gotta add the TikTok tag to everything. I've taken a huge break away from TikTok, and
Have you?
for no self-righteous reason. I mean, truly, I had a time where I was really busy, and I knew if I would watch TikTok at the end of the day, I would just stay up all night watching it. So I
Really?
like had to take like, oh yeah, because that's definitely like I fall down the rabbit hole 100%. And so I just took a step back, and then I just fell out of routine of checking. And now I have people who still send me messages on there,
Oh
and
yeah.
they've sent, I mean, at this point I have over 100 messages, which I am like a zero message person. I turned off my notifications, so I really don't know.
Not a zero message person. Yeah. Uh huh.
I can't have any unread messages. So I turned off my notifications. And
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point I might just log on and respond to my friends who have sent me things and
Um,
just say, I will
yeah.
watch none of those, but thank you.
And some
And
of your,
I'll do a better job.
yeah, some of your, so I have TikTok, but I but I honestly never use it. I watch the stuff on Facebook Reel,
Oh
which
my God, that's so old.
and I can't do it. I'll do it for like maybe like I don't even think I can last 5 minutes before I'm like those some of them are funny. I'll send some of them to like my sister and my friends and stuff like that. But then I'm like done. I could never get stuck on a rabbit hole. I'm like I can't do it anymore. But I never go on TikTok.
Mm,
Um so I think I have like notifications and stuff there, but I just don't ever go to that app. But I did see yours because Tiffany was like, "Oh, here's Dee," and some of your videos on TikTok like have had lots of likes and things like that. And I think I
yeah.
had one that I posted and then I deleted it, so I don't think I have anything.
I noticed very quickly which were the videos that picked up traction. And there
Mhm.
was one that I had that had what the kids these days describe as a thirst trap. It was fine. Like there was nothing like
The kids these days.
the kids
Uh,
these days, just in case you didn't know, DJ, what a thirst trap was.
I
Do
know
you know
I'm
what a
aware.
thirst trap is? Okay,
Oh,
good. Good.
yeah.
Good on you. Anyway, so that video got a lot of traction and then all the videos around it got traction and I was like, "You know what? I'm going to take that video down." Like I'm
You
good. I
did.
did. Um,
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So thinking about like, it is, I like that we're starting to get the word out about our podcast,
yes.
and I think that, when people watch, they enjoy it. And I like to be able to like connect with people. And I think now, like, we presented at that conference and, I'm presenting at another conference coming up
Yes.
in October at Sage. Um, I have to record it by the end. It's a recorded like
Oh.
60-minute presentation.
Hmm.
So it'll be all virtual. But but yeah, I think as we're reaching more and more people, and hopefully it gets people involved more in like the mental health and then advocacy and all the things because like we were talking about Simone Biles who who is back for the Paris Olympics um, and, for the Tokyo Olympics, she exited. I
Hmm.
believe she started, yeah, and then she
Hmm.
exited. Um, and, talked about the pressure and how it's affecting her mental health. And, and has become like a spokesperson. And I was reading about her this morning. Like she never wanted to be an advocate for mental health. That's not what she was like. She was just trying to take care of herself, right? But
Hmm.
like, it's good when we see it normalizes and she did become an advocate because people can see that like, it's okay no matter what level you're at, no matter if you're, you know, a many times gold medalist of the Olympics, like, your mental health is important. Michael Phelps too, by the way, who I was
Hmm.
also followed. I love the Olympics, love the Olympics. And Michael Phelps the same. I mean, he does um commercials for Better Help, which I have some opinions
Hmm.
about. But I think it's great that like we have that people are normalizing you know, um, the struggles that, everyone has, in political
Yeah.
times and in any time, where there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves and that like, we take on from society.
Absolutely. And I think so much of the dialogue has become about mental health, which is amazing. Because you think about these athletes, which I don't know a whole I mean, I know about the Olympics, of course, right? But I wouldn't say like I will turn them on in the background while I'm doing some stuff. And actually, I did that a couple weeks ago when it was like the qualifiers and wasn't really paying attention because I'd like look up, see this beautiful thing, and I'm like, okay, great, back to work. um,
Right.
and in it, the interviewer asked Simone at the end to say, something like, what have you done to prepare for this moment? Completely didn't ask about mental health, to my recollection at least, just asked, what have you done to prepare for today? And, she immediately is just beaming because, she of course had a great run and, is a super, super talented athlete, one of the greatest of our generations. Um, and she said, well, here's, my weekly routine, and here's this, that, and the other. And every Thursday afternoon is my therapy time at 3 p.m. And it was, I don't know if that was exact like quote or whatever, but it was just so normalized of like, athletes tend to talk about like, here's how I prepped. I strength trained. I did this and this is my coach who challenged me. And for someone to say, this is my counselor who challenged me, I'm like, finally,
Right.
finally. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty amazing. Because like, there is a lot of, Olympics was my dream when I was in high school, and I took a whole
What would you
different route.
do?
I was, when I was in high school, I was a runner. I ran
Mm.
track and cross country, and I went to state my senior year in track. I didn't start running until my junior year of high school. I didn't know I was a runner. And then I found out, like, oh, I'm pretty good at this. And so, like, I kind of live vicariously through Olympic runners and athletes and stuff. But the pressure, I mean, I remember the pressure even on in high school,
Hmm.
like, once people find out that you're good at something, and then you're like the star athlete, the pressure that you have on, like, the things that you can do, the things where you're focused, and like, I want to join ski club, and they're like, can't join ski club, what if you hurt yourself and then you won't be able to run?
Mm.
Like, it really is like so much pressure and pressure to be able to perform at your best every single time. So, that was at the high school level that I competed at. Like, the Olympic level, I mean, I know, like, especially even like just being on the starting line and waiting, and like all of the, like, oh my God, like I have to this and I have to that. And like, it's
Mm.
tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and what I noticed you say in there too, and I still hear this struggle a lot of times with young athletes too, in balancing like, oh, but this is your sport. You don't want to choose another sport that you play like in the off time that could
Mhm.
potentially injure you.
Right.
But what we miss out of that conversation is like, it's so normal for athletes to say, oh, you know, I'm taking it easy today. I injured this part of my body, or I'm,
Mhm.
doing some rehabbing, and here's how I'm doing it. But to say that instead about mental health, to say, I'm taking it easy
Right.
today because it wasn't
Right.
a good mental health day.
Yeah.
Or, I need to, switch gears and work on this because my mental health needs it, as opposed to,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I pulled my hamstring, so instead I'm going to focus on, some strength building,
Right. Yeah.
to switch over. Like, we don't do that same switch. Like, it's more
Right.
normalized of like, you're struggling with your mental health, spend more time working out.
Right.
Duh.
Yeah. Right. Yes. 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 And I think, yeah, and being able to talk about, all the things, all the pressure that that you put on yourself or that people put on you. I mean, being able to
Hmm.
have a place just to, like, I wish I was in therapy when I was running. Like, I know I was my junior year, expected to, like, go all the way to state in the 800 meter run. And
Mm.
I won districts, and I got to regionals, and I placed sixth. I didn't go. I didn't. Whatever was the top, I was like not in the top. And like I couldn't deal with that. Like, I didn't go to prom that night. Like, I was like, it just ruined everything, because like, this wasn't what was supposed to happen. And like, how did that happen, and how did I let everybody down and let myself down, and
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. And had I had, like, a place to be able to talk to somebody about that, I carried that for a long time.
Hmm.
So yeah.
It's a heavy burden to carry, but like, there are resources out there that I don't think a lot of people recognize. Like,
Mhm.
so for example, in schools, I know we talked about it on a way earlier episode when our friend Leanna came on and chatted with us,
Mhm.
but school counselors are school counselors. They're not guidance
Mhm.
counselors that help you pick your
Right.
classes, and that's it. You know,
Mhm.
most of them at this point have mental health
Yes.
training, and
Yeah.
they may end up, referring you depending on what it is, the issue that you're going through. But they also understand the experience of young people and are a great, great, great asset and can help through those periods of time. I mean, great resource that's right there for students that they probably don't even know about.
No, and I didn't know about it when we had it. They were guidance counselors back then. But I mean, I know that they would have taken that role if I had went to them, but I always thought of
Mm-hmm.
them as like the people who help you take your class, help you pick out
Yeah.
your classes and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it is great. And I'm glad that we had Leanna on our podcast to be able to talk about
Mm-hmm.
school counseling and how, that is a resource for kids at school because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times families would think like I don't know where to turn, but there's somebody right in their school. And most of the time, most schools have
Mm-hmm.
school counselors.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Another great thing is EAP for folks who are
Hmm.
employed. A lot of companies have EAP, which is employee assistance programs.
Hmm.
So every place is a little bit different. It actually does so much more than just mental health, which is so cool. Like depending on the EAP, but there's some, I know the EAP I have, I can reach out to like a financial advisor and get assistance on that. You can reach out to get legal assistance and things like that. But
All
also,
right.
a lot of EAPs will have, and those are sources of stressors, right? When we talk about
Yeah.
finance or legal or things like that.
Hmm.
Um, but also, sessions with the counselor that are free. Um, I know a lot of places, it doesn't even have to be the employee, it can be members of their immediate family. And
Hmm.
it's sessions per incident. So, like, a lot of places are like
Right.
6 sessions per incident, and it can be like,
Right.
oh, 6 sessions for this, but then something else happens and it's 6 sessions for this. It's not like a six
Right.
session lifetime
Right.
limit, you know?
Right. And sometimes you can, access your EAP resource and then do on, use the same therapist for ongoing therapy if your like
Hmm.
insurance will continue that. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's a lot of ways to access mental health care. I mean, you mentioned BetterHelp for a second. Um,
Mm-hmm.
no matter where you go, do like a little bit of research. And this is nothing specific to BetterHelp because I've done no research on them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but understand, this is just kind of, for everyone's knowledge, like understand what is it that, they offer, what are the people you're working with, are
What
they
are
are
the
they
licenses?
licensed, are they certified, are they paraprofessionals,
Right.
what's the
Are they licensed in
confidentiality?
your state? Are they licensed in your state? And I think that's the thing that, like, why I was like, I have opinions about that because I know that they'll be like, oh, I live in Florida, but my therapist is in Texas. And like, are they licensed in Florida? Well, I don't think so.
Hmm.
So I think like that kind of thing. I mean, the counseling compact is coming up.
Hmm.
Like more and more states are signing on to that. And like, if you're a licensed professional counselor, or an LPCC mostly in most states. It depends, like it's different in every state. But if you're a counselor who is independently licensed, when you sign on to the counseling compact and you do the application and get the whole thing and get, and are like good to go, you'll be able to practice in most states legally and ethically.
Yes.
But right now, like I live in Oregon, my licenses and my independent licenses in California, and all of my clients live in California, and they have to be in California for me to be able to ethically and legally see them. They can't be on vacation in a different state or a different country. They have to be in California.
Which is so silly. I know I talked about it on the podcast before because
Hmm.
we have facilities that are like right on the border
Yeah,
of Ohio. And so, like, literally, if somebody is, I could see them from where I
right,
stand, but they could literally be across the Ohio River and
right.
not be able to provide them care. It's so silly. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm
I mean,
looking forward to the Counselor
I've had
Compact.
people visit Portland. Two of my
Yeah.
clients on my caseload visit Portland, and like I can't see them while they're here, because the fact of I'm not licensed in Oregon. Haven't got licensed here yet.
Hmm. Well,
Hmm.
Counselor Compact, I believe, includes Oregon,
Yeah,
if I'm not
Oregon did
mistaken.
it. Yes, Oregon did. I was surprised they have signed on because it's like impossible for me to get licensed here. So it'll be nice to be able to do it
To
that way.
practice.
They want me to like give uh prove my hours and everything again. Like, I
Oh my
don't,
God.
that's a process I'm not going to go through. I've been independently licensed too long to like do that stuff again.
No, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. That's a no thank you.
a huge no thank you. Yes.
Right.
But there's a lot of great places that mental health care is accessible. Heck, you can even, talk to your primary care physician about getting some
Yeah,
referrals and things like that.
yeah,
Like it's not just medication that they can assist you in getting connected
right.
with. A lot of different things like that. And I'll list in the show notes as well a couple links to some good places
That's awesome.
to find some healthcare. So
Good. Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
will
and
you watch the
also,
episode and read the show notes, DJ?
maybe. Also, it's good that you mentioned the primary care doctor because a lot of times people don't know, depending on the doctor, that they will prescribe antidepressants. Usually they will. They do screening for that. So, but I know a lot of my patients or clients don't know that they can see their primary care doctor for anxiety meds or ADHD or antidepressants. So if they don't have access to a psychiatrist, that's a place to turn.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a uh good shout out. And you can talk to your doctor too. Like if you have concerns, they're not gonna like,
Mhm.
hold your mouth open and force medication.
Right, right,
But for a
right.
lot of folks, it is really helpful. It's
Mhm.
clearing the fog so you can do the work. You're still the one doing the work.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah,
but medication for some folks, it's a really, really great addition to that
yeah,
comprehensive holistic
it,
care plan.
yeah. It makes it a lot easier to do the work. That's what I tell everyone. It makes it a lot
Hmm.
easier to do the work, and then maybe after you've done the work, you won't have to stay on medication.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of people think of it as, um, I don't want to rely on it, but I like that you
Hmm.
said clear the fog. Good point.
Yeah. And there's no relying, right? Like
Right.
I always use the example of like, you're the tightrope walker, man. You're the one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
All it is making sure if you fall, it's not a
Mhm.
catastrophic death, right? Like there's
Right.
a
Yeah.
safety net there. It's not a
Yeah.
crutch, but a safety net.
Yeah.
Um,
Nice.
is the analogy I try to work with when folks, especially with medication for addiction treatment,
Right.
people are hesitant to take that. There's a lot of controversy around it, especially
Mhm.
in different mutual and self-help groups and
Right.
all
Yeah.
of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, um, and there's paraprofessionals being trained. Like I believe New York City had the whole they trained a lot of barbers to be able to recognize and screen for signs of mental health concerns because
Really?
where do
Oh, I
especially
didn't see
black
that.
men or people of color go? They're not
Mhm.
going to their doctor and talking about these things, right? They're seeing their
Mhm.
doctor about like perhaps high blood pressure, but not talking about that comes from stress. But their
Yeah.
barber knows. And
Right.
so I
Yeah.
think we need to get more paraprofessionals trained and help get people linked to the care that's right for them.
My barber is actually getting ready to go into a master's program for counseling, so it's pretty
Ooh,
amazing. Yeah.
that's awesome. Full
Yeah.
circle.
Right.
Are they still going to cut hair? Just do it for like an
Yes,
hour
but
and
they're
charge
moved. I have to get a new
$150 an
barber.
hour?
They're going to school on the East Coast, so I have to get a
Oh,
new
gotcha.
barber. But yes, they're still going to
The
cut hair
audacity.
there. Yeah.
Amazing. I love it.
Right.
Well, I am excited for the Olympics. I'm excited. I don't know about excited for the political season. If I get one more political text message saying, Deanna, do we have your vote? And I have to click report junk to every single one,
Yeah.
I'm going to pull my hair out. But other than
Right.
that, should
Mhm.
be a fun next few weeks.
Yes, yes, for sure.
Well, DJ, I'm glad we were able to connect and thanks for cutting in some time. I know you've got a client session here in a few minutes. So,
I do. Yeah.
um, yeah. Well, thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Don't forget, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast and TikTok. And I'll
Hmm.
update and put our TikTok into all of our profiles because I completely forgot to do that. So,
Awesome. All right.
yeah, check us out and everybody so much for watching.